11 weeks. And
I can imagine you became very impassioned about what it means to mentally rehearse.
well, I just got very clear that mind and body are very correlated.
Connected.
And I just made a deal with myself that I would spend the rest of my life studying it if I was ever able to walk again.
Wow, it's amazing. I got from people in your position that have had incredible careers, but it's not even from your drive or desire to have the career. It's from that mission and passion. It comes from your experience of healing yourself. Have you seen or attracted into your life, back to the quantum physics model, those people who have experienced spontaneous remissions?
You know, that's been my passion pretty much for the last 12 years. I traveled to many different countries around the world and I studied people that were diagnosed with health conditions, chronic and acute, whether it was cancer, MS, or rheumatoid arthritis, or thyroid conditions, or lupus, or chronic pain, or depression. And they were treating, you know, conventionally and or unconventionally, either getting the same or getting worse, and all of a sudden they got better. And so I interviewed many, many people and wanted to find out what the common things were that allowed them to get better.
Do you think by taking a medication for a specific disease or treating that specific disease that's reaffirming that disease still exists?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
I absolutely don't think that. I think that you have 3 types of stresses: physical, chemical, and emotional, which means you have 3 types of ways to create balance in the body: physically, chemically, and emotionally.
Okay.
Now, most people will, you know, take the chemical route and they'll use medications, but they're not changing their lifestyle. They're not doing anything different physically. They're not getting over their emotional states. And so you just can't rely on just one element of those. We have to work on all 3 of those. So I always, when I studied spontaneous remissions, one of the things that I noticed that people had in common is when they were healed, they knew they were better. They didn't have to take the test. They said, I know I'm better. And the doctor would say, how would you know? And they say, because I know. And of course, they went back for their tests, their blood values, their scans, whatever, and of course they were better. So when you know that you know, I call that enlightenment. Enlightenment is when you know that you know. So it was interesting because they had some common things, and then my interest was, once I was able to demystify that miraculous healing and figure out the commonalities, the next most important thing was, can I reproduce it?
Right.
So then once I knew those things, then let's see if we can take people that have conditions and let's see if we can change it. And I'm happy to say in the last 2 years, you know, and that's why I wrote Breaking the Habit, because we've seen people heal themselves of cancer intentionally, of many people from MS, from lupus, from Hashimoto's syndrome, from all kinds of crazy disease.
And once again, that's by breaking the habit of being yourself is once again reestablishing that connection with the mind and the body, and reaffirming and rehearsing the healing.
Right. And listen, because we can make thought more real than anything else, that's the privilege, right? So when you begin to, as an example, if you begin to think about telling your coworker off and you're driving to work and you're thinking about, oh, I'm going to say this and I'm going to do this. No, better yet, I'll write an email. You run through the scenario in your head, and then you say, no, I'm going to go to the boss, and then we're going to talk about it. And you're rehearsing mentally a new way of being. There'll come a moment that the thought that you're thinking will literally become the experience in your brain. The moment that happens, you begin to produce the chemistry as if that future event is happening to you now. And your body is the unconscious mind, is living in that future now, which means your body literally is physiologically changing. By the time you get to work, you're a walking, talking, crazy person, and all you did was drive to work. We could say that you moved into a new state of being, right? So you and I have been hypnotized and conditioned into believing that we need a reason for joy, that we need a reason for gratitude. That's cause and effect. Wait for the experience to do something before you feel. That's very Newtonian physics, very cause and effect. I'm saying to give thanks ahead of the experience, so much so that convince your body emotionally that it's already done, because gratitude means it's already done. You give thanks when it happened. So if your body is the unconscious mind, and you can bring up gratitude ahead of the event, then your body begins to believe that that future event has already occurred.
So thank you for the healing that has already done. Thank you for the money.
But not only an intellectual process. Thoughts are the language of the brain, but feelings are the language of the body. You have to move into a state of being.
Right.
So when you can give thanks and convince your body that it's already done, the environment is no longer signaling the gene. You're signaling the gene ahead of the environment. Now, it's no longer cause and effect. Now you're causing an effect. So when we begin to do that properly, the beauty behind it is then as we become quantum creators. So people would say, oh, that's sense. And you would say, you're absolutely correct. Well, quantum physics is beyond the senses.
I'm so glad that you said it that way, because we could tend to get very heady here and speak only about the mind and be very scientific about all of this. But your main message is the connection with the body, and really the body's connection back to the mind.
Sure.
And how the mind experiences, how the body experiences and expresses what it is creating or desiring. Now, when the chemical reactions happen through the body, does that go beyond the body also in a vibratory manner?
So we know from some experiments that have been done that if you take a group of people and you have them set 3 vials of DNA in front of them, right? And you say to them, these are expert players, people who really can affect something. You say to them, now, with all of your intention, we want you to see this DNA wind or unwind. And have these people practice the experiment. And you check that DNA at the end of the experiment. The power of intention does absolutely nothing to the DNA. Thought nothing to change the DNA. You say to those people, now, we want you to move into an elevated mood. We want you to feel gratitude or joy or goodwill. We want you to just empty this feeling out into the quantum field and do it over and over again. If you check the DNA at the end of that experiment, nothing's happened to the DNA either. The emotion, elevated emotion, did absolutely nothing. But when you say to them, now, we want you to see the DNA unwind, thought. We want you to move into the elevated emotion of how you would feel if the DNA unwinds. 25% of the DNA unwinds at a remote location. So our thoughts tend to be electrical in nature, and our feelings tend to be magnetic in nature. And how we think and feel broadcasts an electromagnetic signature that influence every single atom in your life. The thought sends the signal out, and the feeling draws the event back. Now, if thinking and feeling creates a state of being, the quantum field responds to who you're being, not what you think or what you feel, but the combination of the two. Because that begins to broadcast the signature. So, what if you woke up in the morning and you said, what is the greatest expression of myself that I could be today? What is the greatest ideal of myself? And let me remind myself how I'm not going to think today. Let me review the thoughts that bring me back to the old self so they would never slide unnoticed.
Why would you go to the negative like that?
Because the importance is to observe them so they never slip by unnoticed. Most people, think about it. Most people, they start off with good intentions, but they wind up on the couch with remote control, and they just said 2 hours earlier they were going to work out. So you have to begin to denature the old self neurologically. You have to observe those thoughts, observe those behaviors, observe those emotions, so you would never allow yourself to go unconscious to them again.
I hadn't thought of it that way.
The word meditation, the actual literal translation of the word meditation in Tibetan means become familiar with. So when you become familiar with your unconscious thoughts, when you begin to notice and become familiar with your unconscious habits, and you begin to become familiar with your unconscious emotions and feelings, if you're knowing yourself, that's meditation. Now, most people don't want to light a match in a dark place. They'd rather turn on the TV or get on the computer to try to make that feeling go away. The process of change, first you have to become familiar with the old self, so much so you're going into the operating system of the subconscious and bringing it to your conscious awareness.
Identifying.
So that you know that it would never slip by unchecked by you. And if you said, let me remind myself on who I do want to be, and you began to think in new ways, and you began to plan your behaviors, and you became so involved in that experience that the thought became the experience, and you began to feel like that new ideal. Now you would get up, not as the same person who sat down, because if you got up as the same person who sat down, nothing's happened. In the quantum field, neurologically, biologically, chemically, genetically, you have to get up as somebody else. And when you get up in that new state of being,
that's when the true change occurs.
you're broadcasting a whole new electromagnetic signature. And if you can maintain that modified state of mind and body your entire day, get ready, because your life is about to change. The universe is going to organize an event in your life in a way that's right for you.
Hear, hear. There's so many things that are running through my brain when I'm talking with you. It's the connection.
So then you would become familiar with the new self. When you begin to become familiar with the new self, you're still meditating, right? You're saying, I'm wiring a new mind, and I'm conditioning my body emotionally. And if I practice it every day and I remind myself, it'll begin to become familiar.
That's how it really happens. So now that what you were talking about before, you can actually create long distance healings on people, or you can actually heal other people through those reactions that you were talking about on the vials, or by creating the mind and the body in connection to create healing for other people. You can also create healing for yourself, and then that in turn reverberates to create new changes and new experiences for yourself and attract to you, right?
Sure, and the quantum model says that consciousness is non-local. So I mean, we feel separate from everything, but on the quantum, energetically,
it could happen at any time.
You can, healing at a remote location, according to the quantum model, is very probable.
We have another clip that I want to show you that kind of encompasses all of this. It puts it all together for you. Take a look at this, because we have to put it into our visual awareness as well.